Hello, and welcome to the video version of the Left of Greg podcast. I'm Brian Marin, the host and creator of the show. As always, I will be joined by human behavior expert Mr. Greg Williams, who the show is affectionately named after. On the show, we discuss different topics through the lenses of what we call human behavior pattern recognition and analysis. If you'd like to find out more about what that is, please check the links in the episode details and go to our website to learn more. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. The links are also in the episode details, and hit the like and subscribe button to help support our work. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show. All right, buddy, I'm going to hit the go live button. Let me know when it shows up.
It is
and we'll be
live.
Going. Okay, that is good. Hello, everyone. We are recording this on a Friday morning, and I have decided to bring back something I haven't worn in a while, which is the Hawaiian shirt for Aloha Friday. So if you're just listening along, you don't get to the pleasure of being able to see that, but we are.
Oh, and it is a Lulu, Brian. It's a doozy.
Yeah, I bet. All right, so today we want to jump right into the topic. We're getting into kind of symbolism and iconography, and I know this was kind of a something that a lot of people are into or get interested in, and often the reason why we're talking about it is we often see things misinterpreted, whether that's a symbol, graffiti, tattoos, symbols, message clothing, regular clothing, hand and arm type signals, salutes, waves, words that people use oftentimes get misinterpreted or misrepresented. And there's a reason some of this stuff changes over time, but sometimes these things have meaning, whether it can be, you know, a tattoo or a symbol or something like a swastika, which gets what I call hijacked by history. Is a term I use for a lot of these things, where at one point it meant one thing and then someone took it and started using it, and now it took on a whole new meaning. So that's another kind of discussion point. But I want to get into this because a lot of times people take these things out of context. They see someone wearing a pin or saying a certain word or wearing a certain color and automatically attribute an extraordinary amount of value to it. And sometimes it's just the only clean pair of shorts that person had that day. I
That's
mean,
so
you know,
true.
and I get that all the time with clothes I wear to the gym. So all my gym clothing is either like my t-shirts are all like free t-shirts I got from somewhere, or something I ordered a bunch of supplements and they threw in a free t-shirt for their thing, and or it's from here or something there, and someone's like, oh, you went to that event or something. I was like, no, man, I got this t-shirt for free. It was free. So so meaning everything has to be put into context, and just because something means something to you doesn't mean it means that to the person either demonstrating that symbol, wearing that clothing, having that tattoo, or holding that sign, or using that term. Okay, so those things change over time. So rather than saying, oh, this person said that, or that person has a tattoo of this on them, that means this. You can't do that. You don't necessarily know what it means to that person if you don't put that observation into context. So, or the saying that I like to use is, sometimes it's just a book about a whale. You know what I'm saying? And
That's so
and
true.
and so, you know, I want to kind of just frame the discussion as that, and we're going to jump into a number of different areas, but the overall arching theme is kind of symbolism, how it can be taken wrong. So, Greg, I'll kind of throw to you to start off. I just want to get that brief intro and get going.
No, that's wonderful, and welcome everybody. And Brian, that's a masterful shirt, man. It takes it takes some balls to wear a shirt like
Gotta
that
have a
on
lot
a
of
live
confidence to
broadcast.
walk around with.
I'm just saying. So listen, Brian, when we frame stuff, we always look for precedent, we look for case law, we look for a legal or a scientific standard, and we try to dig deep from there rather than opinion-based testimony, which always blows, and it's
Yeah.
always going to be found wrong, and it's always going to be interpreted or misinterpreted. So I look to Occam's razor, and we take a look at Occam's razor,
William
which
of
is
Occam.
you've got parsimony, and you've got a situation that says, you know what, usually the answer that you're looking for is the simplest answer rather than this complicated League of Nations leaning on dominoes things.
I
And
believe
so,
it's amongst competing hypotheses,
yeah,
right? The one with the more simpler one is usually the right answer,
yeah.
right?
And so I'm straightening that up. And the reason I'm straightening that up is that we talk to a lot of people when we're on the road. And we were recently on the road And we talk to people that say, hey, listen, couldn't it be this, that, and the other? Yeah, it could be that, and it could be this, and it could be this other thing. But the most thing, it's stress fracture. It's this that happened. It's, the ice was too thin to support the weight of the person. So when I would go into investigate like a homicide, Brian, I wouldn't look at all these crazy things. I would look at what the evidence is tending to show me. And then I would say, okay, rather than putting a round peg in a square hole, let's follow that evidence. So what we got now is we've got these things where I'm scared to death. Look, first of all, I'm a former copper. Second of all, I'm a white guy. And third of all, that that I'm always using my hands and using some sort of symbology or iconography when we're at class, and I'm petrified that somebody's going to mistake my peace sign or thumbs up or hey, it's okay. Do you get what I'm trying to say? My urban sign language, and think that I'm calling out a coup, and that's not what it is. And we've created this hypersensitivity, I think,
Yes.
towards these symbols and these icons, the iconography.
Well, hypersensitivity is a good one, right? We become, kind of would I don't know what the term is to use it, but the idea is if I'm looking to you become hyper vigilant with this stuff. Oh,
Yes,
I'm
you do.
if I look for meaning in everything around me, I'll find it, regardless of whether or not there's meaning in it or not. I mean,
Yep.
and we often get it wrong. I have the flag hanging up right behind me, right? If you're just listening in, I've got my my Chicago flag hanging up on the door in my office here, and is a throwback to where I grew up and where I skinned my knees and all that. And I love that city, and it's dear to my heart. But someone came on here one time and was like, "Oh, were you a police officer in Chicago?" And I was like, "No, why?" They're like, "Oh, you have the police flag up." I was like, "No, no, that's for the city of Chicago. That has nothing to do with the
Yep.
police." But right away, you jump to those conclusions, and it's just another example of how we do this, right?
And the
And
coppers do, Brian. The coppers do have that patch on there. But what,
yes,
what
because they
happened
work
is
for the
the
city.
person, yeah, yeah. So the person glammed onto that one factoid, right, and said, "This is now going to be my opinion," and that's a rush. That's a rush to a unreasonable conclusion, right?
One of the things we found, especially with and we did a webinar on this about like graffiti specifically. So graffiti is a great one, and this is where a lot of symbolism and iconography. Graffiti falls under that category of
Yep.
symbolism and iconography. It's been around forever, for as long as since cave paintings. That's a version of graffiti, right? And like I was saying, class PowerPoint is just a modern day version of that same thing. Here's
That
some
is.
stuff I want you to look at, and I'm going to tell a story with it. So one of those things was it was a while back. I think we had some phone calls from folks. I believe it's down in Texas. I couldn't remember, but it doesn't matter. Where they had a bunch of swastikas at like a school, and this is what was going on. They were spray painted, and everyone went, "Oh my gosh, we have this horrible. We've got some white supremacists out here. This is a huge threat. We had no idea what was going on in our neighborhood." And it was really like a couple 13-year-old kids that were children spray painting on there. And you go, well, do you really think they fully understood what that meaning was and what the message it was that they were delivering at 13 years old with a can of spray paint? I'd say that's unlikely, right?
Right.
Didn't know you didn't have a white supremacist problem in your neighborhood, because there isn't one, right? These kids are jackass kids who need to be taught that what they did was wrong, and here's why it's wrong, and here's what that symbol means to others, and this is right.
Yep.
But meaning those things, we also get hypersensitive to those things. Well, I saw this and I know what that means. You don't know what that meant to me. You have no idea what I meant by that. And I think that's important too, especially with like tattoos. Like tattoos are a huge one, right? I've got private tattoos. You can only see, like, I got one on my leg, and that's it. You can't see it unless I'm wearing shorts, and I only do that in certain situations. You have the one of the what is it, the dolphin riding the unicorn on your lower
It's
back.
actually opposite.
Opposite. It's yeah, okay, got it. It's the unicorn
But
riding the
the
dolphin. That
colors are.
is yeah, the color's better. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
um but the point is, like with mine,
Mhm.
like you don't, like, you can look at a symbol someone has and say, oh, I know what that means, and they're into this, and they were at it. It's like, dude, or you know what, I mean, you got the story, the the Marine who would, if you paid for it, he'd get it
Yep.
tattooed on his body. So it was complete nonsense, right? So, and I think it's putting those observations into context and understanding that, hey, maybe that's not what it meant to them, and you're only going to know what it means to them either by further observation, gathering other artifacts and evidence, or asking them. I mean, right?
Exactly.
You don't necessarily know.
So you're exactly right. Let me give you two differing perspectives that come to an unbelievable, undeniable conclusion. So when we first bought the ranch, we had a farrier, and the farrier that came out we didn't hit it off at hello. And I thought he was brutal to the horses. Didn't like the way that he was trimming down the hooves. Just didn't like the guy. And so I went to Shelly because Shelly's the voice of reason, the CEO of our company now. And I said, hey, get a read on this guy. She goes over, she doesn't like him, bounces, and we get another farrier. The farrier that we got was a foul mouthed, had the cinches in his mouth kind of thing. And watching him move, it took us a couple of times, is what I'm telling you, to get the right farrier to put the shoes on the horses. Well, what he would do is when he started saying certain words, I noticed the horses would move away from him. And so I go, hey, what words were you using when it was that? And he goes, well, I've done these horses for so long that when they hear me say the F word or gosh dang word or this,
They
they
know.
actually start tensing up and they move. Well, listen, that same reaction happens in kids when they put the swastika on, sometimes backwards, sometimes on a
Or
garage when they're
wrong.
running through a
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? They might not know the history of it. They might not have ever been to the Holocaust Museum. They
Right.
might not understand about National Socialism and its historical perspective, Brian, but they know they got a reaction.
Yep.
And so that reaction drove the catecholamine loop. So they want to go and do it again. The brain's chemistry is firing. So that's what drives that. Now the other half of that is Pat Ross, my mom, Shelly's mom. I've got a number of moms. I'm an orphan,
You're
but
not an
so this is
orphan,
my
Greg.
stepmom.
Not
I
how that
am,
works.
folks.
It's not how that
So she
works.
was at Meyer Thrifty Acres, and while she was walking through, a guy had a face mask, which is the new billboard now, and
Right.
it said Arbeit macht frei. So sorry for my weak German. And so she called right away and she said, hey, you speak German. What does that mean? And Arbeit is work and frei is free. So Macht makes work will set you free. The problem is that message was hanging over Dachau and Auschwitz and the gosh damn concentration camps back in World War II. Now, here's a time where you think about, yeah, you have the First Amendment right to wear that, buddy, but do you understand all the hate that you're emanating around and the fact that you might run into the wrong person whose cup's full that day and they
Right.
decide to tune you up or shoot you in the head or whatever. So Brian, what I'm trying to say is that we forget how important iconography and symbolism is, and sometimes we get bent out of shape when it means nothing, and we have to avoid that. But also we have to educate folks on, hey, here's the 5 or 7 symbols, for example, that are always going to evoke a violent reaction. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is one that's going to drive rage. And we should talk to our lawmakers. And if those are out of line, Brian, we should rein them in. That's why there's amendments to the Constitution, right? We should
Right.
say, hey, these certain things provoke images that we don't want to do. So it's a very fine line between free speech and using an iconography or symbolism to piss somebody off. You said it the other day. We were having just a gradual conversation, and you drew back the swastika back to ancient China. You drew it back to ancient
To
Egypt,
Egypt.
and
Yeah.
many of the people that used it as an eternity symbol, not unlike
Right.
the Mobius loop, for example, right?
Right. Right. No, and so this gets into it. Is that how do I know? How can I determine someone's intent? Understanding
Yes,
all that stuff, right? How do I know? Because that's what it's about. It's what does this person intend? What do they mean by it? Because
yes,
don't put your own meaning on it, right? The idea is it's how do I do that when I see symbols or I see graffiti? How do I know what's serious? What's some punk kid? What's a public message, what's a
yep,
private message, all that stuff, because that's the important part of this stuff. It's if I wore that, with an intent behind it, or if I put on a certain colored piece of clothing with an intent behind it, there has to be, or there's likely some other artifacts and evidence I can glean to help support that idea, right?
absolutely,
Because otherwise, it's
absolutely,
just a T-shirt or somewhere. So how do I do that when I see this stuff? Because and I don't want to get too. There's so many different examples. I don't even know what a good one is to use to start with. But like, I mean, even clothing and stuff. People go, "Oh, you wear this type of clothing, so that means this." We get interesting comments on our on our Instagram
I
page,
bet we do.
but I did one, and it was some kids, not kids, I mean they're older, but in Huntington Beach, and they're all dressed exactly the same. Like, I mean, to a T. It was, your brain could not tell the difference. The black shoes, black and white shoes, black pants, black shirt. They're like kind of skater type kids or whatever. And the whole idea was, hey, look, they're dressing the same. That's called homophily. That's all that stuff. And then someone's comment was like, yeah, you don't know, they're not doing anything wrong. And I was like, okay, well, I never said they were doing anything wrong. I just said, look, there's a group of individuals, even at a great distance with what they're doing. You can use artifacts and evidence to support a reasonable conclusion that they're likely working together, and you can establish somewhat of a hierarchy. That's all the point was about. I didn't say they were doing anything. And then their comment was about well, yeah, it's like anytime I see a bunch of frat bros walking down the street with their Sperry hats or this, that, or the other thing, described it, I know there's some impending date rape. And I'm like, you don't know that. You don't know any of that. You don't know anything. You can't
No, but
jump to
thanks
that
for sharing
conclusion.
that bias,
Well,
buddy.
that's what, yeah, it
Holy
was like, he
moly.
was like, oh my God. And then of course
Yeah.
one person commented like, hey, is there something you want to talk about? Did you have a bad experience with some frat guys? But like, that's the whole point. He's like, you can't jump to that conclusion because that happens on both sides for good and bad. You go, oh, they're dressed this way, they must belong here. Or look at how they're dressed, they must be in a gang. And I think that's a huge problem that we have when we're trying to understand this stuff.
Unreasonable jump to an unreasonable conclusion at a high speed without intervention by comparing it against the environmental and societal baseline. Stop. Okay, so here we were. First of all, shout out to North Macedonia. Here we were on the island of Hania in Greece, and we love Greece. We love everything about it. And all of a sudden, we started seeing these Nazi symbols, and then there was these spray painted coppers with helmets and face masks beating the people that were protesting and covering up. And I've seen that before. I know what that graffiti tends to show. So I warned everybody: increase your security posture, make sure that you increase your visibility, and essay. And so the very next morning we came up and the streets were empty. And we had to get to training. And so there's a little coffee place that we went to all the time. So I'm pushing like Shelly out, going, they probably won't take her. And so, hey, Shelly, go see what's going on. And she goes out in the street and, be very, very quiet, like the Bugs Bunny episode, right? And what happens is the Communist Party was staging a protest, a rally. And so here come the big sticks with the big red flags and the big red hats. Okay, listen, take things in context. When I was in Detroit, and I'm still a huge Red Wings fan, if you were running around with red and white, that meant that you were a Wings fan and they probably played that night before or were going to play tonight, and you
Yeah.
were a fan. This context in Greece at this time with the elections coming up meant something very different, Brian. And we could have got killed. We could have got beaten to death with those big sticks. And maybe if you're wearing red in Compton, it has a different thing. Maybe if I'm wearing a Pittsburgh baseball cap in the wrong place at the wrong time. So you said it best. The best way to do is ask. And you're saying, should I always ask the person? No, there's an ultra violent person that I see, and I'm not going to tell you where, but all the time, and wears this long scabbard and a knife on the side, and it's tatted up, and is always angry. And I've always wanted to go up and interview the guy, but I also don't want to get shanked.
Yeah, you don't want to
You
get
get what I'm
stabbed.
trying to say?
Yeah.
So somebody right now watching or listening, Brian, is saying, so why don't you go up and ask him? Well, obviously my fear. So what you can do, you can go to community policing, or you can go to the mayor's office, and you can go to the city attorney and go, hey, listen, I'm seeing a lot of these red jackets out in the public. What does that mean? And they go, oh, no. That's Western University, the alumni. They all wear the red jackets or something. Or maybe it's a gosh damn Home Depot
So
worker or somebody
so
selling a house. So ask,
when
you
I
know?
was walking around Huntington Beach the other week,
By
same
the way,
thing.
Brian lives in Huntington Beach for you stalkers.
Yeah,
But
go
go ahead.
find me. Go find me
Yeah.
there. So and same thing. I started seeing a lot of like younger, 20, early 20s, late teens, kind of that age, and a lot of them were walking around. They all had like like trucker style hat, but it was for Bass Pro Shops, and I'm like,
Ah,
okay, well that's not
very
popular
distinctive.
in Southern California, just given the context. Now I'm in the South, I see Bass Pro Shop, or in the Midwest, like not really a big deal, right? And well, one, the hat's usually going to be dirty. It's not going to be clean like all these hats were very clean. And so I was like, okay, well, whatever. That's odd. I just took note of it. And then later on, we were at an establishment that serves adult drinks, and we were hanging out,
Surprise.
and this guy sits down like right next to me and with his girlfriend, and he's got one of the hats on. So I'm like, well, all right, I got to ask. They were sitting there having a good time. I said, hey, bud, sorry to bother you. I'm just curious, man. I'm not from around here. And I've seen like a whole bunch of people all wearing the Bass Pro Shop hat. And he kind of leaned back and smiled. He's like, yeah, so here's the thing. And this guy was really cool. He's like, dude, I played college football in Texas. I went there, and like all my buddies down there, we just like Bass Pro Shop was like a normal thing. Like I didn't think anything, it was like a work hat. Like, and then never thought anything of it until I came back here. And he's like, I came back here now in Southern California, and I see all these other kids, young guys, like wearing a Bass Pro Shop hat. I'm like, what the heck? I was like, the closest Bass Pro Shop to here, and he's like, well, there actually is one. Is like it's like an hour away. And I was like, so what are they? He's like, it's just like a cool fashion thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna wear a Bass Pro Shop hat to be ironic. I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I was like, but
That's
that's what I'm
great.
saying. To him, he had a dirty hat that he wore on the farm that he worked at over the summer in Texas. What with his buddies that were down there, and then
Dirty Mike
right, and
and
the
the
boys
boys.
were wearing the hats here just as a fashion statement. So the whole thing was, it just seemed odd or different or unusual to me. Found a guy randomly, had to sat down next to me and was able to ask. But
That's
sometimes
brilliant.
that's all it is. Meaning, but sometimes a hat's just a hat. Like that. That's it.
Well, Brian, how can a small segment of society co-opt and hijack the peace sign or the OK sign? And
Yeah.
folks, I'm giving them on the show that for the watching to be demonstrative. How can they take that from me, who doesn't know better, and then somebody comes in and goes, "Oh wait, you can never use that signal again because this small militant faction uses it." Hey, you know what? Go after them. Tell
Well,
them to kiss my ass because I use it as
yeah.
a means to communicate
Well,
because nonverbal communication is huge.
anyone who's ever done any diving anywhere in the world, that's the international sign for I'm okay. I mean,
There,
that's what it is. So
isn't that what we
I
use
mean,
it for? I
even
mean, you know,
in cultures that don't speak English, but with
yep,
that's why I always say context matters, right? It
it's
depends on
hugely
the
important.
context in which you use something like that. And when what a lot happens is, like, we want to strip away the context of the situation and go, nope, this is what it means, that's where it is. And
Yep,
so you've either got on one side of the aisle, you've got people that pick apart every little thing someone says or does or wears,
yep,
and it's see, I told you they were part of this international cabal
yep.
of child sex trafficking rings, harvesting adrenochrome. I told you, and
How
everything's
do
a
you even know
conspiracy.
that, you creep? You're
So,
creepy.
and the book, then the other side
Yeah.
of the aisle takes it and goes, "Oh, see, they said these words here. Look, this word means that. You're a racist." So it's like you're
Well,
one or the other.
Brian, I
Like, and
help
so I'm in none of those camps, by the way.
help me because
Um,
you're a PhD in street. Help me. So this and I don't know if I can call him a douchebag or an asshole, so I won't. But the shaman guy from the DC
oh God,
riot stuff. Okay.
yeah,
Uh, uh,
perfect
Polo
example.
head, painted up, all this other
Dude,
stuff.
that guy
But
lives in his mom's basement. He's
yeah,
got mental
but
health issues.
yeah,
Like,
here's my thing.
yeah,
Okay, if
he
I
didn't
saw
even
that
vote in the
guy,
election.
oh my God, if I saw that guy in a stadium and he came out through the big paper
Yeah,
thing and they
you'd
were
be
firing
like,
off stuff, he would fit perfectly. But
yes,
at what point does somebody go, this guy's got it going on? He's a thought leader in our group. No, he's not. No, he's not. And dude, if that's you, wash your face, okay, because that
yeah,
stuff will give you acne, and put away the hat, man. I mean, what happens, Brian, is sometimes, like, I'll give you two quick examples. One in Grosse Pointe within the week, and one in Crested Butte. Both times, people snuck into a place that was very prominent and put up swastikas. And the swastikas, by their clandestine nature and
yeah,
the reveal, were meant to be shocking.
yes,
And therefore, if they were meant to be shocking and the venue within which they were placed, the environment, then it's likely to assume that those people were using it as hate speech. And even though it's protected, it's horrible, it's cowardly, it incites and invokes bad things. And we got enough bad stuff. Let's look at some good stuff. You know, Brian, iconography.
yeah.
When I was in Iraq, I used the Bart Simpson stickers all over
Well,
Iraq to show everybody to stay in Cooper's color code yellow. I
yeah,
wasn't trying to be insulting. I wasn't trying
right.
to
It
be
was a
racist.
reminder. It was a memory,
It was a
emotion, link.
reminder.
But let's take the other side, because sometimes these do mean, and there's a lot of great databases and a lot of people who research a lot of this stuff, where, because
Yes.
a lot of gangs, narco traffickers,
Yep.
human traffickers, a lot of illicit activity, they'll have their own form of communication, some of that with using symbols and iconography like that, or numbers or letters or words, and they have certain meaning. So it is important to remember that in those contexts they absolutely do. And there's great I mean, there's people who document that stuff, especially graffiti. I mean, I
Yep.
mean, that's like there's so much that has gone into graffiti. That's a whole language in and of itself that has changed over time, and it's incredible. Like, I always love seeing new graffiti or something I haven't seen before. Look at that style, because it's a new thing. It's a language. But that's the thing. It's meant to send a message. So maybe that message is, hey, I just want to shock you or do something to piss you off. I want to make you angry, or I'm marking my territory, or I'm
Yes,
saying this is where it
exactly.
is, or I'm saying paying homage to someone, or this is my art. This is how I describe myself. This is right. This is how I express my personality. Right?
Yep.
There's all those different meanings. So you can't always take one and jam that square peg into the round hole.
Yeah, and so Will Atkinson, call sign teacher. We both love him to death. His new baby hen is now probably 18 months old. Henrietta, wonderful wife Jacqueline. Shout out to everybody down there in Dallas. So Atkinson is tattoo extraordinaire. I mean, he knows about the art that goes behind him, from Banksy to the street stuff, or with the graffiti. But he has personal tattoos and private tattoos and public tattoos and all this stuff. And we would argue all the time, because what he would call street art to me was malicious destruction of property.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me, Brian. You know that,
Right.
because I'm an
Right.
old guy. It's hard for me to look at graffiti and go, "Oh, wow, that's beautiful art," but it's changed and adapted. I haven't. So it's the same thing when I see like tats. You know, back when I was growing up,
Yeah.
there was a
Those are a
guy
big
across the
deal.
street that was named Cappy, and tattoos meant you were a Navy guy or you did this or
Yeah.
that. And now it's like, you know, du jour, everybody's got one.
Yeah.
And
Well, now you got like 18-year-old
yeah,
girls going with their moms to get their first tattoo. Like
right.
it's very different than it was even
It's
20 years
different.
ago. You know
It's
what I mean?
different. And so I have a hard time with that. And so that creates a degree of anxiety. So the best way to do it is to research it. You know, there's still libraries with books. There's still people that you can call, or you can go to a tattoo shop. You know, the cool thing about a tattoo shop, it's a public habitual area where you can walk in and sit down and go, look, I don't want to tat, but what does this mean? And you know what? The tattoo artist, Brian, I guarantee he'd be glad to tell you what that is. So knowledge is power. And sometimes when we feel like we're being hyper vigilant and we're going to do something stupid, we can actually back off a little bit. You get what I'm saying? And say,
So
what, last thing, listen, that Meyer Thrifty Acre, the guy with Arbeit Macht Free on his mask, that's hate speech, buddy, and it's
yeah,
protected. I get
it's
it,
protect.
but
Yeah,
I cannot think of a context where that
where that's
wouldn't be.
appropriate.
Do you see what
Right.
I'm trying to say?
Right. There.
So beware of what you're sending, because you'll reap a whirlwind, and that's not a threat. I mean, sooner or later you'll run into the wrong situation at the wrong time. Even if it's God going, hey, that wasn't so funny, you know.
Yeah, no, 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 and that's an important thing to remember too, especially colors are a big one,
Yep,
right? Meaning, colors have a lot of they do like so, especially when flags or logos of groups are important because there's meaning in there, or
yep,
they're most of the time there is, unless they're just a whatever, just very amateur group. But anything that's been around for a long time, stood the test of time, all of that stuff does have meaning to that group. Colors are a big
certainly.
one, but they're almost universal, right? We always talk about like, to look at our flag, right? Red, white, and blue are the colors. Well, red being sacrifice, white, symbolizing purity usually,
Yep,
and then there's different meanings behind these colors, but that's almost universal, right? And you'd see that like, I mean, even overseas when you'd see stuff like the people flying, oh, they got a black flag at their house, they're an ISIS militant, or they're part of some terrorist group or insurgent group or this, or it's like, oh, or a family member died, and you're
yep.
like, well, why would you hang a black flag? It's like, what color clothing do you typically see when you go to a funeral? Yeah, it's this black, right? That's symbolized, that's death, that's that martyrdom, that's person who's gone on, you're grieving, like it's no different. I mean, I think we sometimes attribute the value that we want to see it mean, rather than taking it for what it is.
Yeah,
And all of these examples are a good one, but clothing is a huge one, man. I mean, that's a clothing is now, it's how people describe, it's another way to express themselves, right? Or it to me to transmit what's important. So what I'm wearing and how I wear it is also a part of who I am, right?
yep.
So it's that's, if you look at it that way, versus, oh, you wear this pair of shoes, that means you do that. It's like, oh no, man, you don't know that about me. So I think that's important to remember.
So listen, one, I'm not a gourmand. I will eat whatever's put in front of me, and for as long as it's put in front of me. You know that I'm not a clothes horse. I wear whatever I happen to have that feels comfortable. As a matter of fact, I used to start. First of all, I wore Husky, Sears Husky, because I was always a little on the chunky side. Don't tell anybody that.
Husky
But in
boy.
addition to that, back in Detroit, it was Pants Galore, the $5 store. Have we got pants for you? And so you could go in and buy a handful of pants, Brian, for $5. You get what I'm trying to say?
Well, a
And
handful of
a
pants only
handful of
sounds like
pants. That's
one
well,
one pair of
listen.
pants.
Anybody right
It's
now that's writing that down and
a
thinking about
handful of
handful of
pants.
pants is a great business. But the idea is that, Brian. So when people look at me and they say, okay, he's normally disheveled, wearing stuff that's got frayed edges. It's because I believe that clothes talk to me, and these
Yeah.
clothes have been around for a long time, and they're my comfort zone. So I retreat to my geographic anchor point, which
Right.
happens to be my clothes. When we go out to a restaurant, when we're on a road, you could anticipate exactly what I'm going to get on a gosh damn menu every time. So when you're comparing that, there's no message there. That's just Greg, and he doesn't have time to put molecules and dendrites together to determine what's on the menu. Okay, but if you see somebody that's putting mission focus, and they're putting time against a project, and you see them consistently coming out with those, and then when you're talking to the person, you go, oh, it doesn't mean anything, it's meaningless. That's when you got to be suspicious. And what I would say is, you reap just what you sow. Somebody said that, and I'm sure they were famous. So be prepared to reap the whirlwind on those. And I don't mean a punch in the mouth or somebody running you over shooting you. Those things happen every day. But I am saying you might lose a job. You might,
Yeah.
and people are going, oh, yeah, that's protected. Listen, there's ways around everything.
Yeah.
If a
Yeah.
person wants to get you out of a job, or let's say
Yeah.
that there was an opportunity, Brian, somebody walking by and going, this person would be perfect for my
You
shoe ad,
well,
or whatever,
free,
you might miss some of that,
well,
right?
yeah. Well, free speech laws are about the government's control of free speech, not the company you work for. They can
Exactly.
make you, when you sign that paper that you didn't read that says you will not post A, B, C, or D on
Yep.
social media. You will say, yeah, sorry. They can hold you to that because you signed it. But you brought up a great point about time. And I think that's an excellent way to look at some of this stuff. And when someone takes the time to put a lot of effort,
Yep.
whether it's into what you wear. Like my wife, we go out to a nice dinner. Man, she takes an hour for her to get ready. She's putting
Yep.
a lot of time into that. She really cares about how she looks when she goes there, and she wants to spend that time because she's getting dressed up, and we don't go out too much, and it's been just because of COVID and we're so busy and all that stuff.
That's
So
meaningful.
so it's meaningful. It has meaning to her. So
Yep.
in that case, I have to make sure I'm putting some meaning into it as well. So I'm meeting her at some level so she doesn't get pissed. But the idea is that that's a great point. So some of the stuff that you see with people wearing or tattoos or different articles of clothing or the symbols that they're used or what they're using to display those symbols, man, when you put time into it, it's like when you get someone who is always working on their car, or
Yep.
they have some special thing that they do. They're a car guy or girl, right? And they're always wrenching on it, and they got the newest thing, and they got the decals on there, and people want to, like, oh, look at that guy with his little rice rocket burner. I was like, dude, that guy takes a lot of time and care into that vehicle. And now you can gather. Go ahead, and when you see that on the outside, look through that window. It's clean in there.
Yep.
Everything's put away, right? That's what's so important to them, and that's the takeaway from it. So I can gauge their behavior, I can gauge their organization level, I can maybe gauge their sophistication level, but
Of course.
I can't tell you, what their political ideology is,
No,
right?
but I can tell you this, Brian. I can tell you that if I'm consistently provocative or consistently
Yes.
evocative, I'm consistently poking the bear, which we call that on the street, that's trouble, and just go away. And that's what I mean by, the reap the whirlwind things. You're going to lose some friends. I'm not going to be your friend if you're engaging in hate speech. Shelley showed up at the class at one time with the F and F shirt on. She did it specifically to be evocative, and you remember
Yeah.
the incident, and
Yeah.
it worked perfectly because she got everybody's attention immediately, and then she started talking about that, about how you can see the atmospherics around a person that's wearing that and what they're doing. Listen, nobody likes to be scared. Nobody likes to be frightened in public. Nobody likes to feel anxious when they're going to the Myers shopping.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say, which is like our city market. So stop that, because if you're engaging in that, like a beard can be a form of safety.
Hmm.
Somebody we know called the beard, he can hide behind that, and that's where he retreats when he needs a little
Great.
psychological break, perhaps.
You,
Not talking about Brian and that shirt.
I
Uh,
you know why I so folks who don't know why I always have a beard is I got very drunk in Mexico and got a tattoo of a beard on my face, so I had to
exactly.
grow a
That's
real one to cover up the tattoo.
and we never know
Um,
which one is we're seeing, folks. But no, but the same thing, Brian, with my weight. My weight is I used it to insulate me when I was feeling bad,
well,
and
literally, it insulates you, keeps you warm up there in the winter in
but
the rough.
psychologically, Brian, I
Right,
retreated to
right.
those things, and I created that big, fat, jolly surrounding when I was hurting real bad. And, now it's taken 6, 7 years, you know what I'm saying, to get back down under 300 pounds. Boy, that's fun. So that speaks right to what's important to people. And if you follow me around now, you know that I'm not the same person that I was. I've changed. So people can change, but you're not
So
going to change anything when you're throwing back to iconography and symbology that was hate speech for 3,000 years, millennial, right? You've got organizations that people belong to. They got a secret ring, or they're the
yeah,
Stonecutters,
yeah,
we do
yeah.
from The
That's the
Simpsons or
Simpsons.
whatever.
Yeah,
And you should applaud that, because inclusivity and
yeah,
diversity are amazing things. The framers of the Constitution knew that, Brian. Instead, you got these gosh damn asses that decide to go out and pick the one that
yeah.
pisses people off and just wave it under their nose. And it makes
But
me as mad as usual.
but here's the thing: is what you're saying is just not as interesting or fun as watching the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'd rather read a Dan Brown novel and do go down that rabbit hole versus actually putting things into context, because that's more
Yeah,
exciting.
exactly. But you know what? The Hollywood Bollywood crap that's out there, most of it's wrong anyway. And so stop putting around peg in a square hole. Brian, artifacts and evidence support reasonable conclusions, and you can determine from that a most likely course of action or a most dangerous. And there are some signals that can be dangerous. You can wear the wrong gosh damn sport outfit to an event and somebody beats you to death. That happens
Yeah,
all the
yeah, that
time.
happens all the
So
time here in the
so
U.S. too. Yeah, absolutely.
just how you dress, and like you said, the colors and the symbols that I wear. And there's always somebody coming up with something that you've read it each year. Walmart comes up with a little kid with a shovel and a pail, and there's some saying on it, and then some group comes out and goes, oh, that was the antichrist hate group from whatever else. Stop being so hypersensitive, but educate yourself, educate your community on it,
Well,
and you won't be as anxious, you won't be as afraid all the time.
well, so we put a lot of I forget where I was going to specifically go with this after the Walmart comment, but no,
You remember that.
well, it would be two sides of a coin with this when we get into symbolism and iconography. So the one side would be, one, I have to understand that I don't necessarily know what you mean by this, Greg, when you're
Yep.
wearing something, or you're flying your flag or repping
Yep.
your set or your crew or whatever you're doing. But I also have to be careful, like you said, of what I'm doing, that what I'm wearing or saying or doing might have meaning to someone else that I have no idea of.
Yep.
And that's when you get like the little, if anyone's like oversees little cultural differences, a lot of that stuff where he comes from, or you walked in the wrong door and everyone's yelling at you and you're just like, what the heck just happened? You have no idea what's going on, and people are freaking out because said something wrong or did something with the wrong hand. Those little things are what we're talking about. But once you see it in context, you go, oh, I see, from your perspective, this is what that means. I had no idea. And I think it's good to remember that when we're looking and trying to nitpick everything apart
Yep.
that people are saying or wearing or doing, which is amazing, just because you just look at their behavior, their actions are the best way to do it, not necessarily the pin on their collar or the color tie they have on,
Yep.
or the tattoo that they have, because I mean, you don't know necessarily where that came from. Now you can, like I said earlier, through sustained observation or other artifacts and evidence, you can then start to maybe put something together. But it takes a lot, I think.
Yep. Yep. And when in doubt, sit down for a minute and read something, and read something like the Constitution. Everybody knows I got one on the visor of my truck, and if you be a smartass, I'm going to bring it out and tap it on your head and tell you something. Congress says, listen, you can't force me to choose a religion, or you can't prohibit me from exercising my religion. They said, listen, we're not going to pass any law that stops your speech, and that includes your hate speech, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to influence the press. They can say whatever they want, even if it's something that pisses me off. And you have the right to assemble. But the big word right in front of that is peaceably assemble. You have the right to peaceably assemble. And if you don't think that you're getting a fair shake, you have the right to redress
Yeah,
your
you have
grievances.
yep.
Okay. So all of those things are amazing. And somebody's going to say, yeah, but it was written, a couple hundred years ago by a group of white men that were slave owners. And this, stop for a minute. Okay, we get
Put it
that.
into
And,
historical
and
context.
there's nothing that we can do about that. At that time, that's the way things were. but read those words again. Read some of the great literary stuff. Listen, sit down for a minute and think of how they were protracting that out, Brian, for 1,000 years. They were thinking, this is good for everybody. Nobody should do this. We should never have soldiers billeted in our private homes. Think of all the great stuff that's in there. If
Yeah.
we start using those things as a guide, we'll get back to center. I don't like any extremist views, anything that's
Right.
extreme,
I don't.
you know.
Yeah.
And
I'm not.
I'm vanilla, man. I'm Ben and Jerry's vanilla.
Yeah. Well, that I mean, and then that gets into again. I mean, you bring up the founding fathers,
Yep.
and don't get me started on the Ancient Aliens episode I watched yesterday about the founding
I
fathers.
got another good show for you too.
No, no, but the
So
same.
Brian, write this down: paranormal caught on camera, because it
I
solved
know
so
that I
many.
can't
It
watch it. I
solved
can't
so
watch
many
it.
of my issues,
I
Brian. I got to tell
I
you,
can't watch it. It's too bad.
my
It's so
favorite,
bad. You know they
my favorite. No,
they how many seasons in they haven't actually caught one on camera
no,
yet, have they?
no, they have
You
yet
think they're
to.
gonna? No, but the you when you especially with historical stuff with people who aren't alive and can't explain what it meant at the
Or
time.
defend themselves.
Yeah, that really especially back then you get a lot of symbolism and iconography in our like the stuff. You look at the dollar bill and you look at what that came from, and you look at how the Capitol was designed and what the framers had in mind with the
Yep.
Constitution and all these like everyone gets to put their own spin on it, and no one rarely do people actually put it into historical context and say, hey, this is what that meant to them at that time, circa late 1700s. Like
Yep.
things have changed slightly since then. So I think that's another great way when you get it to look at it when you get into the historical ones of, hey, what's the meaning behind this? Because it's easy to look at it and go, well, this sounds really bad, or hey, I don't really get this. When we go, well, look at the time, this is what that meant to them, and I think it helps explain some of these a little bit.
I think you're right, Brian. I think if we come off the gas and we take a look at a comparison and compare that. So you know who Frank Lloyd Wright was,
Yeah,
and
yeah, you did a
Frank
lot in
Lloyd
the
Wright.
Midwest. Yeah,
There's a lot of times that we're in an area and I go to see the Frank Lloyd Wright
yeah,
house because I'm pretty impressed by that stuff.
yeah. He's kind of
So,
a design, well, architect ahead of his time,
yeah,
sort of like a was he was
designer,
1800s. I mean,
architect.
yeah,
So think about what he's done, okay? And he epitomized what man, meaning man, woman, male, in between, wherever you are, I don't give a damn,
person.
okay? If you wanted to be remembered, you built something above
Hmm.
the ground that somebody had to take a look at, and
Yep.
he put it with water and stone, and he cantilevered and had flying buttresses just to show off his amazing intellect and his amazing ability and all of this wonderful stuff. Brian, that's all we want to be, is we want to be
Yeah.
remembered. So if you want to be remembered, you have to decide, do you want to be remembered for something wonderful that'll go down through the ages as an amazing thing that you were part of, or do you want to be remembered for hate, violence, anger? And there are those people right now, they're not listening to this show, likely, but there are those people that just want to do that. And you guess what? You're going to burn out like a supernova anyway. That's a good title for a movie, perhaps.
Burn out like a supernova, or just
Yeah.
supernova?
I mean, you're going to get crushed, or somebody's going to hate you, and you're going to be living in your own filth alone. I mean, who wants that? You know what I'm saying? It's right back to the soup kitchen with
Dirty Mike and the
Dirty
boys.
Mike and the boys.
Yeah. Yeah. And this again, I always stress the historical context for all
Yep.
of these observations and where they go into, because one, it's important to investigate and understand some of them, and some of the symbolism and iconography with like, everyone gets into like, I mean, they're big ones like pyramids, the all-seeing eye, the
Yeah.
pentagrams, these major things, but the one we talked about, the swastika, like that stuff changes over time. So don't open up the encyclopedia, pick one era, and go, oh, see what it means right here in 600 AD. That's what that guy means right there. And you're like,
Yep.
well, that guy might have never looked in this book. He
Yep.
might have just said, hey, that's a really cool design. Can you tattoo that on my face? You know what I'm saying? So that's
Exactly.
that's the problem I always see with tattoos, and they're tough, and so some people get it for just, hey, this is how I thought it was cool. Some people have some deep meaning behind it, so I have to look into more. So I don't know if you have any other
Yeah, I just tell
examples of
everybody to
that.
stay current, Brian. Listen, one of the great ways to stay current is the Supreme Court is always publishing their capers. SCOTUS is always out there putting this stuff. There is no hate speech exception. The free speech that is listed in the First Amendment, Mattel versus Tam, 2017. read that. Go out and read those because, Brian, that's another thing of anxiety. That's against the law. Burning the flag is against the law. Now it's urban legends.
You know, it's not. Yeah.
Find out what the truth is before you start, beating on the bandwagon and screaming. You have the right to say anything you want, but wouldn't it be nice to have it to be the correct thing once in a while? I'm just saying.
Uh, you think so, but no. Everyone wants to believe that they're right
Shout
and
out to Shaman Boy.
they have a good. Oh my gosh, how many? You know, they
What would
found it.
Occam have done to him? Occam would have used the razor on Shaman
I
Boy
think
and
that's,
that hate speech.
he would have said. I've never done the literal sense of this term razor, but here we go. Yeah, I mean
Exactly.
that's interesting. But all right, so don't jam a square peg into a round hole. You want anything else to add here, Greg, on symbolism and iconography? Because we've seen a lot of people go really in depth with it, and I went, wow, you just did a lot of research that makes absolutely no sense and does not apply to the situation.
Exactly.
So
Just, hey, listen, folks, don't be a hater on my immense chair.
that is a huge chair.
It's a
It makes you
huge
look
chair.
like a small boy. Are your
Thank God my
legs are
head
your
looks
legs like
normal again.
dangling at the bottom, like kicking
No,
down
but
at this?
Shelly's got the identical chair, and she looks like a Chucky doll. Her little feet stick straight out, and she's like in the center of the chair. And every once in a while, I forget, and I sit on her, and I hear tee, till I get up. It's terrible.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to check us out on social media. Hit us up. Your any questions or things you want to want us to cover, and we'll be happy to go for them. Hit us up at leftofgreg@gmail.com. Give us a little 5-star review below at the bottom if you can. That would help us out a lot, or whatever stars you think we deserve. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thanks so much. Don't forget that training changes behavior.